Hey everyone, let's just dive right into it. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely foolproof method for bringing that sticky, mouth-watering summer barbecue flavor right out of your oven. We're looking at a complete masterclass for Patriot Oven Baked Baby Back Ribs. You know, whether it's literally freezing outside or you just don't feel like babysitting a hot grill, this explainer is going to show you exactly how to get that perfect fall-off-the-bone party dish without stepping foot outside. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll kick things off with a virtual trip to summer. Then we're crafting the spice rub, moving into the slow and low bake, hitting that crucial final glazing technique, and wrapping up with serving your masterpiece. All right, Section 1. A virtual trip to summer, the perfect party anchor. So the source material actually calls this a virtual trip into summer, which I just love. If you're craving that vibe, you really need to try this. And what's super interesting here is that this isn't just a single recipe, it's a foundational cooking method. We're going to cover some highly specific, highly delicious ingredients today for sure, but the source makes a huge point that this oven baking technique works like magic with literally any dry rub and BBQ sauce combo you can come up with. It's totally designed to be the ultimate zero-stress anchor for your backyard gatherings. Now, if you're hosting the party, you absolutely need a game plan, right? Well, this timeline is your best friend. After your initial prep, you're looking at a 2-hour bake at 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, and this is key, a 15-minute rest, which leads right into a super active 50-minute glazing phase at 350 degrees. All in all, it's a 3-plus-hour culinary journey. Knowing this prep timing means you can actually work backward from the minute your guests are scheduled to arrive, so these ribs are hitting the table hot, sticky, and at the absolute perfect moment. Moving right along to Section 2, crafting the spice rub, the flavor foundation. Okay, let's talk flavor. Check out this robust 9-ingredient homemade dry rub. You kick things off with half a cup of ancho chili powder. That gives you this really deep, earthy base. Then, look at the balance we've got going on. A 1/4 cup of white sugar, a 1/4 cup of brown sugar, and a 1/4 cup of salt. That sweet and salty combo is absolutely crucial for building a great crust. Next, we bring in the aromatics and the heat. We're talking 2 tablespoons of black pepper, a tablespoon of cumin, a teaspoon of dry mustard, a teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and finally a half teaspoon of chipotle pepper. You just toss all that into a bowl and mix it up. It really is a masterclass in balancing sweet sugars with those complex, spicy kicks. And here's a brilliant little tip straight from the source. Store any of your leftover dry rub in an airtight container for later. Because honestly, you're not going to need that entire batch for just 1 rack of ribs. You only want to use enough to give the meat a really generous coat. So that extra rub, it's not waste, it is literally a massive head start for the next time you throw a summer party. All right, let's get cooking. Section 3, the slow and low bake, the tenderizing phase. Okay, getting these ribs prepped from the oven is absolutely critical. Step 1, place your rib rack meat side down on some heavy-duty foil. Step 2, take a knife and just prick the back of the rack a few times. Next, you're going to go to town with that amazing dry rub we just mixed. Coat it generously on all sides. Finally, keeping that meat facing down, fold the foil up and around the rack to create a really tight seal and pop it onto a sheet pan. Those textural cues, the meat side down and that tight seal, are everything here. Wrapping it up tight like that traps all the moisture inside, basically turning your oven into a little slow-cooking steam chamber. To wrap our heads around the science of why this works so well, let's compare the 2 baking phases. Phase 1 is low and slow, 250 degrees with that foil tightly sealed. This is exactly how we get that incredibly tender, cooked-through meat. But phase 2? Well, that shifts the whole environment. We crank it up to 350 degrees, and we open the foil up entirely. This is all about building that sticky caramelized glaze. Understanding the difference between these 2 phases is literally what separates amateur ribs from a totally mouth-watering masterpiece. So for that first phase, you let it ride in that 250-degree oven for about 2 hours until the meat is perfectly tender. But hey, pay close attention to this next part. Take the ribs out and let them cool for exactly 15 minutes. Seriously, do not skip this. That 15-minute rest is such a vital piece of the timeline. It gives the meat a chance to relax and settle down before we absolutely blast it with that high-heat finish. Which brings us to the climax of our explainer. Section 4, the final glazing technique, building the crust. Okay, your oven is cranked to 350 degrees now. Let's walk through this together. First, open up that foil bracket and drain off any of those accumulated juices and fat. Just get rid of them. Second, grab your 1 cup of barbecue sauce and brush it all over every single side of the rack. Third, flip the meat over so it's facing up on the foil. Fourth, slide it back into the oven, leaving the foil wide open, and let it bake for 10 minutes. And then, step 5, pull it out, brush another layer of sauce on the meat side only, and repeat that baking and brushing process 4 more times. By keeping that foil open at the higher temp and continuously slapping on that sauce, you are meticulously building layer upon layer of the most incredible, sticky, caramelized crust imaginable. And that brings us right to this magic number, 50. 50 minutes. That is the total amount of baking time dedicated entirely to the final glaze. 10 minutes in the oven, repeated 5 times. Now, I know that sounds like it requires some real patience and attention, but it just proves that when it comes to barbecue, repetition is the secret to perfection. Baking those layers of sauce onto the meat over 50 straight minutes creates this ideal, thick, beautifully tacky exterior texture that I guarantee your guests are going to obsess over. We are in the home stretch now. Section 5, serving your masterpiece, the ultimate party dish. The source gives us a really solid piece of advice here. Cut the rack into individual rib segments and serve them up with a little extra barbecue sauce. Why does this matter so much? Because remember, we are pitching this as the ultimate dish for a summer backyard party. Chopping the rack into individual pieces before you serve it makes it ridiculously easy for your guests to just grab a bone while they're standing around mingling, maybe holding a cold drink in their other hand. Plus, keeping a bowl of that extra sauce right there on the side means everyone can dial in their own perfectly messy bite. So that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've gone through the whole technique, the low and slow tenderizing and that crazy meticulous 50-minute glazing phase. But remember what the source said. This method works with literally any dry rub and sauce combo you can think out. So my question for you is, what flavor combination are you going to use for your virtual trip into summer? Are you going to stick with the sweet and spicy ancho chipotle rub we looked at today? Or are you going to go rogue and experiment with something totally wild? You've got the technique down now. So get out there, get prepping, and have an amazing party.